Joining us now from Christopher Newport University in Newport News is Dr. Quentin Kidd, and he is a political science professor and also the chair of the Judy Ford Wasson Center for Public Policy. So he's got all kinds of big titles and big names and all that good stuff. Dr. Kidd, great to have you back with us, sir.
Good morning, John. Good to be with you.
Now, before we get into the news of the day and stuff, how's your mom doing?
My mother's doing really well. She's she lives in London, so
right.
Whenever she's not doing well, it's a long trip for me. Thanks for asking.
Right, I know you. She was not feeling too well, and you went out there a couple months ago. So it sounds like she's doing a little bit better now, right?
Right, that's right.
All right, and it's expensive to get out there these days, isn't it?
Especially last minute, medically related trips. They aren't cheap.
I know.
I'm like you. I'm in education.
Neither of us.
We're not K Street. We don't have K Street salaries, right?
Or whatever they do. We don't have it. I know that. When you're in media or education. Now, my son is studying for his doctorate. He's at the University of Reno, Nevada, and he's a college instructor out there. And so, his career path is to get his doctorate, and then, he'll basically be a college professor, hopefully at a major university when that happens. And he said to me the other day, he says, Dad, the only thing with this is I'm never going to make a lot of money. And I said, like father, like son, it doesn't fall. The apple doesn't fall from the tree. But you're doing what you love, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. I guess.
That's right. That's right. If you're doing what you love, you're probably doing something well.
Yeah. Well, that's and you're making a difference. So
right.
Every to each his own. I guess we can all do things differently, but there's an old saying: "We are who we are."
That's true. That's right.
So, Dr. Kidd, there's so much to talk about. Can I start on the international scene? President Obama now basically saying, look, I can't do anything about the Ukraine. I know in your chair you're involved in this stuff. I mean, how do you think all this is going to play out?
Well, I honestly, American voters typically do not care about foreign policy or foreign events that happen internationally unless they directly impact the United States. So I really think the long-term effects of this on public approval of President Obama or on Americans' perceptions of him are really not going to be. It's going to be hard to discern them over the long term. I think in the short term, however, it confirms what a lot of people think about him, which is that he's not really in control of things, that he's not really on top of, managing crises. I mean, this is why his approval ratings are in the low 40%. And I think these events in Crimea and then what seems to be bubbling up again in Syria, it reminds people that he's really not in control of all this. He doesn't have his mind in front of this. He has his mind in back in behind it. He's reacting. Mm-hmm. And I think it plays into a larger narrative that people have about him that he's not being the kind of president they want, and that's why his approval ratings are low. So I think in the long term, this doesn't affect him in a negative way in and of itself, but it confirms what a lot of people already think, and I think that's where the damage to him is.
Playing into the narrative.
And the narrative here, the foreign policy international narrative, is consistent with the domestic narrative, which things are slightly out of control, things are slightly unmanaged, that sort of narrative.
The number of people that are now disapproving of the job this president is doing higher than we've seen it in the past. What are the domestic issues you think are driving that, Dr. Kidd?
Well, I think the number one domestic issue driving it is the economy. People see Wall Street doing well. They see the stock market numbers rebounding. They bounce up and down, but they're rebounding. They hear about corporate profits, for example, stuff like that. But they don't feel similarly comfortable about their own economy. Unemployment still is higher than people want it to be. So I think there's a level of unease about the economy. A lot of people are still having trouble with their mortgages, that sort of thing. So that the president gets blamed for that. So the economy is number one. But when Medicaid, when Obamacare rollout happened, and it stumbled when the website didn't work, et cetera, that his approval ratings ticked down several points, and they haven't recovered from that. And I think that the rollout of Obamacare, his signature program, and not rolling out well, I think simply made a lot of voters who were on the fence with him, probably had voted for him but weren't comfortable with the economy, say, all right, I'm not happy about this. We made a mistake, and we need to, I'm just not happy. So when people ask me, how I feel, I'm going to tell them I'm not happy. And recovery from that is probably a slow process, not a long process. So in 6 or 7 months, the Obamacare rollout may be working just fine, but I think it's going to take longer than that for people to start approving of his job. And I think the real key is the economy. If the economy starts recovering strongly, if people start having job opportunities that they hadn't had, then I think that's what it takes. But that's a long-term, couple of years process, I think, for him.
Common Sense News Time 820. This is the John Fredericks Show. We're with Dr. Quentin Kidd, Associate Professor, Chair, and Government Director of the Judy Ford Wasson Center for Public Policy at Christopher Newport University. Dr. Kidd, we know you're on a landline, and we know your battery is doing that beep thing that drives everybody absolutely bonkers. If it blows up before the bottom of the hour, just call us back on your cell phone.
Will do.
Okay, let's get to the attitude of the students you have coming in. Do you sense any change, like 2008, 2009, now 2013, 14? Do you sense a change? Are they still as enthusiastic for Obama, as liberal, or do you sense maybe a little bit of a difference in the past between 08 and now?
Yeah, no, there's clearly a change. I think in 2008, young people were so energized and excited about Obama, in part because they were so disgruntled by a war and by the two wars that we were in. And, of course, we all know that young people bear the burden of war. And they wanted a change from that. So they were really intrigued by the change mantra. And they wanted a change from the wars, essentially, the kind of president that George W. Bush was in the wars that dominated everything. But young people, here's the way I characterize young people. This is the millennial generation right now. They're libertarian on social issues, so they don't think government has any role to play in who somebody loves or doesn't love. They don't think government should regulate whether you want to have an abortion or not. They think marijuana should be legalized, etc. But they're also very conservative on fiscal issues, so they think the government should balance its budgets, taxes should be lower, spending should be lower, that sort of thing. And so I think what's happening is as the wars recede and as foreign policy fades from the minds of Americans, we're in this sort of isolationist retreat right now as a nation. What comes to the forefront for young people are these libertarian attitudes on social issues and conservative attitudes on fiscal issues. And I see that as dominating their mentality right now, their political outlook.
I tell you, that is fascinating to say. What about intervening in all these hot spots in the world, getting involved in Ukraine, getting involved in Syria, things like that? Do you see them just are they taking a more non-interventionist attitude than maybe in the past?
I think much more so. I mean, I hear students say quite often, if it doesn't directly involve the United States, I don't understand why we should be involved. And that, I think, is an effect of the two wars that we've been fighting for the last 15 years now, Iraq and Afghanistan. We're out of Iraq. We're just getting out of Afghanistan. So I do think there's a what is our role? What is our purpose? What is this effect having on our country? And should we be involved in it? There's a very cautious. There's an isolationist-oriented caution there. I don't want to say that they are isolationist completely because they're also very cosmopolitan. They're connected to the world. They have friends all over the world. They travel a lot. They just are isolationist on our foreign policy, especially as it relates to military intervention.
I'll tell you, that is really fascinating. And because, if you follow where the young kids are going, they normally take you to where we end up. I've always been a believer in that. We're with Dr. Quentin Kidd, Associate Professor and Chair and Government Director of the Judy Ford Wasson Center for Public Policy at Christopher Newport University, 827 here on the John Fredericks Show. Dr. Kidd, the Republicans, I'm going to be broadcasting from the Republican National Committee tomorrow. I'm going there because my friends there are energized. They're telling me they're going to win the Senate in these midterms. What say you?
Well, I think the odds are probably better than 50-50, maybe not much more, but better than 50-50 that they do. I mean, I think Democrats are on the ropes right now, and in states like Louisiana and Arkansas and Alaska and some other states, Democrats are on the ropes right now. And it really has to do with defending the way government has been functioning. It's a mathematical problem for Democrats. They have more seats to defend than Republicans do. People are upset with government right now. Congress has the lowest approval ratings that they've ever had in history since we've been tracking approval ratings. And what people are focusing on right now is the botched rollout of Obamacare. So the irony for Democrats is that the nation is down on government and down on Congress, in part because Congress is dysfunctional and not getting anything done. It is that way because, for the most part, because Republicans in the House don't want to do much, but Democrats are going to take the heat for it because everybody's focused on the botched rollout of Obamacare, which just confirms to people that government can't really do anything right. And so that's the reason Democrats, I think, are on the defensive. They're on their heels. And if they stay on their heels like they are now, going into fall elections, Republicans are probably going to have a really good election season.
It's going to be interesting. Dr. Kidd, 1 minute. Medicaid expansion, Virginia, government shutdown. Who blinks?
I don't see the government shutting down. I don't see the Virginia government shutting down. I think before we get to that, Medicaid will be delinked from the budget. And so I guess what I'm saying is I think the McAuliffe administration blinks. And I think they blink because if we move to a shutdown of Virginia state government, all of the blame and the focus goes on the governor. And so I don't think the governor wants it to go down that route. And I also think tactically it would be smarter for the governor to say, after the next few weeks, to delink it and say, I tried. The effects of not expanding Medicaid in Virginia are going to be X, Y, and Z. Blame that on the Republicans. I tried, and I'm going to come back and keep pushing Medicaid in the future, but I'm not willing to let Virginia government shut down. Yep. So I think there's a political and tactical advantage to delinking it if it's done the right way.
That's going to be the final word. We're out of time. You want to follow Dr. Kidd, go to @Quentin Kidd, @Quentin Kidd, 8:30. I'll be right back. Thank you, Dr. Kidd.